I'm good to go. I can't see Ed, but I'm assuming he can see me. Is that all good? Ed, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right, Ed, hi. Guys, welcome to our parenting seminar. It's another event in our Recharge weekend. Unfortunately, I had to bump to this afternoon because of load shedding. But that's great. I know a lot of people who could have made yesterday couldn't make this afternoon, but they will no doubt watch this because it's been recorded and everything. Ed, welcome. So glad you could join us.
It's sort of amazing to join you. I wish I was actually joining you, but I'm getting photos from Pretoria of people in their swimming pool having a braai, so I'm feeling a bit jealous.
So you guys won't know this, but we had plans to bring Ed out here. It was all set. I think flights even booked. Ed was due to come out here Easter last year, and so obviously that's been delayed. We will still get him out here one day. When the load shedding hit yesterday, I thought God is really against Ed sort of speaking to us, but we're we're pressing on anyway. Now, Ed, you and I actually go way back. Ed and I used to work for the same church in London. I was an apprentice. Billy was the kids worker there, and Ed worked with Billy as an apprentice. Ed, you think of those as the good old days, don't you?
I know Billy's feeling poorly, so she's at home.
Yeah.
The last message I sent to her said, "When was it ever a plan? When I used to sit at your kitchen table with you and Billy and Punny, that I would now be speaking to your church in Cape Town about parenting when I first met you. I don't think I was even married." So this is, my relationship with yours and Billy essentially is the story of the ministry I've been doing with children. So it's very strange.
Well, so when we moved out here, Ed took over from Billy as the kids worker at Dundonald. And then Ed, recently you left that role to start Faith in Kids. Tell us briefly, what is Faith in Kids?
Yeah, so I did Billy's job for 12 years. Billy taught me everything I know of significance. I did that for 12 years. Billy left me with about 50 children at Dundonald. We moved into a bigger building. It grew. Very little of it was to do with me. By the time I left that job, we had about 200 children each Sunday coming through. And more people were saying, how does this work? What is it you're doing? What's the magic? I was saying what you'd expect me to say, which is, we love parents, we love Jesus, we try and explain him to children. So 4 years ago, I decided it was time to stop doing that for a church and start doing that for other churches. So Faith in Kids is aiming to do what I always did at a church that Billy and you taught me to do, which is speak to parents of Christ so that they can speak to their children of Christ, and do your best on a Sunday and throughout the week to support parents in that. We've been going 4 years, we've grown. There was 2 of us, we're now about 8. Lockdown has made us grow a bit quicker than we planned to, but I think we're growing because churches and parents find it difficult to raise children to know Christ.
And Ed, while we've got you here, so this is a bit of a tangent, but tell us, what's the mood in London through lockdown? What has it been like?
I think it's very bad, is a simple answer, which is we're now exactly a year to the day since lockdown started, and not many people have been into their workplace for 12 months. Our children went back to school a week ago for the first time since Christmas. And I think most families have a serious difficulty as a result of lockdown. So maybe it's a relative who's very ill, maybe it's depression, maybe it's a child for whom screen school is a disaster. You know, that if you had an issue before lockdown, which we all do, it's got a lot worse in lockdown. Yeah. So I'd say the mood is a bit bleak, but we've got these dates we're all desperately hoping will be real. So for instance, I think my family will be having our first holiday on April the 12th since August. So, my family, Mary and I, are very tired.
Yeah, I can imagine. But Ed, through all of that, and we've been asking all the guest speakers this weekend, what are some of the things that have helped you through lockdown? What are any of the encouragement you've had through lockdown? I mean, just helped you spiritually, helped you to keep going?
Yeah. I mean, I want to say it's been a spiritually rich time for personally and for Faith in Kids, and I think even my family. So, we've been having Bible times at lunch because the kids aren't in school. I would say there have been some very low moments. And I think the big thing I learned was you don't need energy to lean on the Lord. So, when I felt totally done in and the family feels like we're on the edge of oblivion, I think I have learned faith is surrender. Faith is saying I have nothing to offer. Faith is saying at my most weak and fragile is when the Lord is great. So I would say I have this last 12 months, our nation has been incredibly vulnerable. And we're still to see whether people are more likely to investigate Christ the other side of lockdown, because we're still not meeting as a church.
Yeah, thank you, Ed. Well, look, can I pray? I'll pray for you, and then I'll hand over. Father God, thank you so much for this time to meet together. Thank you for Ed and his family. Thank you for sustaining him through this lockdown. Thank you for just the fact that he's been able to surrender and trust in you through all of this. And Father, we thank you for the work he's done over many years in thinking about how to disciple children, thinking about how to help parents. And I do pray for him now as he teaches us, as he leads us. Pray that you would be with him. And Father, pray that you would be at work through this time together, that you would be equipping us to be better parents. We ask this in Jesus' name and for his glory. Amen.
Amen. I'm going to share my screen. It's annoying, isn't it, when people sort of talk you through Zoom etiquette. I think I would give I would give anything to be with you right now in the room with you for so many reasons. But I'll do my best from here to do this. What you're about to hear is roughly the equivalent of this book. So if teaching kids football is an analogy of parenting, an analogy of raising children, then this next half hour is the Dummy's Guide, which is, I hope if you read the Dummy's Guide, you would pick up one or two tips. You would go in with your piece of paper ready to coach some boys or girls playing football, and it would make a bit more sense, but it wouldn't really equip you. So this next half hour, and I want to say this now, I am sorry. I think it is my experience that when I speak on parenting, I'm a parent. I come to this broken, wishing I was a better parent. I'm yet to meet the parent who said, Ed, honestly, we're totally smashing this. So I just want to tell you now, I'd be really surprised if I say something that means you leave going, right, now we can do it. But I hope to show you Christ. I hope to give you some thoughts, some conversations to carry on. That's what this is like. This is what is about to start for us, which in the next few weeks, this will be happening in our parks. You probably get that we are a soccer mad nation. So while my son and I are still playing cricket in the backyard every day through winter in the snow, it's mainly football that fills our pitches. So this will be happening, and this is a bit like church. So the first thing I want to say is well done for being a member of St. Peter's, because I honestly believe you stand no other chance as a parent unless you're a member of a good church. I do think if you know parents who are finding parenting hard, you get to look them in the eye and say, it doesn't matter what you think of Jesus, church, or St. Peter's, you should come along because we have people who can help. And that has been my wife and my experience of that, which is, as a parent, you're standing on the sideline of your church, you're watching your kid, you're watching the other children, and you're thinking, all right, they're a bit different. They're similar in some ways. Some are skilled in some areas than others. They're all kind of similar and all kind of completely different. And I look at the parents, and some of them shout something a bit more knowledgeably, but they're as clueless as I am. But we're doing it together. That's what football is. Football on your own isn't football. Parenting on your own the Bible says doesn't really exist. Parenting on your own is fiendishly difficult. The Bible would argue impossible. It doesn't recognize it. So this is what you are doing by being a member of St. Peter's. You're kicking a ball about of parenting together. You're watching each other. You're standing by each other. You're whispering into each other's ears. You're slapping your kids on the back and you're saying, keep doing it. And you're slapping other families' kids on the back and saying, keep doing it. You're doing it together. Now, finally, there's something I saw in lockdown, which I've never noticed before, which is this. Maybe it was happening, but I didn't notice it. But it's one adult and one child on their own. The adult isn't the parent. He's brought all this kit. He's got his own net. He pops up. He's got the cones. And the kid must be hugely motivated. But fundamentally, the big thing is the adult standing there is the expert, is the expert on that child. The adult standing there knows everything there is to know about that child. And this is the story of parenting. I was recording a podcast. We have a podcast. You can look for it, Faith in Kids. I was recording a podcast with a retired GP who is a mother and a grandmother and a very godly Christian woman. She was telling me on this podcast, you can listen to it, look out for Love Wise. She was talking to me about raising your children to understand gender, sexuality, puberty, all of that stuff, the stuff that makes me wince and hope someone else is going to help me out. There was a moment in this conversation when she was covering puberty, and I was honestly thinking, I didn't know any of this, and I'm meant to be a parent. And she said to me, Ed, you do know, don't you, that you are the world's best person to talk to your daughter about puberty? And I said out loud, I think that can't be right. A, I'm the wrong gender. B, I am learning about puberty from what you are telling me now, which must mean I'm an idiot. Her point was, and she went on to explain it, there are a few words she could teach me. There's a few diagrams she could show me. But I know my daughter better than any other man in the world. My wife knows my daughter, our daughter, better than any other woman. We know our daughter better than anyone else. So the only barrier is just, do I know some stuff to pass on? Do I have some wisdom to give her? But I found that very striking, which is to be a parent is to be the world's expert on your children. Also, to be a parent is to have the Lord for you if you're a Christian. Now, then you start to get a very powerful mix. The Lord has made you the expert through no reason other than living in the same house as your child. The Lord has given you a church to do it with you, to encourage you. And the Lord is on his throne through his word, by his spirit, empowering you to do your best. So you do just need to look at one another and just remind yourselves of that. There is no government policy that your government could enact in South Africa that would help children, your children, more than you. There's no social service. There's no tax benefit. There's no school that could equip your child for life like you can. I think particularly if you have some money in your pocket, if your kids are going to good schools, and I'm sure yours are, you just have to say that to yourselves quickly. We are the experts. The Lord is for us. The chaos in our family, this is not unknown to the Lord. This doesn't come as a surprise to him. I remember when my daughter was born, she's our oldest. We have 3 children. Beth was born at 6 a.m. in the morning. I was there, and it was a traumatic experience for me, and I think Mary thinks it wasn't that easy for her. My daughter, because being born is exhausting, had slept through the whole first day of her life. It got to 8 o'clock at night, and basically Beth hadn't woken up. And I was told to leave the hospital. Secretly, I didn't say to Mary, I was hugely relieved. I was looking forward to sleeping in my own bed, a really good sleep. And I thought, Mary's in charge. She's going to be fine at this. I put my hand on the doorknob to leave. And Mary said to me words that filled me with fear. Ed, what do I do if Beth wakes up? You You see, behind that question was something I hadn't realized, was that Mary had no idea what she was doing. I was totally clear I had no idea what I was doing. It was news to me that she didn't know. In retrospect, I realize this sounds ridiculous, but I did believe the Lord had somehow USB sticked women, or my wife in particular, so that they were going to get this. So that is the story, I think, of all parents, which is we go from total ignorance, confusion, and panic. And I would argue it doesn't change radically. You just have a few years of experience. And that is why being in church is brilliant, because there are people who have done it before. And being Christians mean they're humble, vulnerable, and honest. They're willing to tell you, we felt that. So to this day, it is those church parents that Billy and Murray know well, that have walked with us through parenting for 15, 20 years, who I still knock on their door and say, how does this work? But they have us, the Lord has us. It's possible. Can I share with you one Bible verse? Again, I wish I was with you, because I would just stop at the moment and say, how does this feel? But we'll keep going. Oh, hang on. One moment. I think I have to go back to sharing. Sorry. This is so annoying for you, I know. Right, there you go. One verse. You know this verse well. This comes at the end of the Beatitudes in Matthew, the end of the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew. Jesus said, this is how the Christian lives. And he finishes with the story of the two builders. And he finishes with the story of the two builders with this. Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house, yet it did not fall, because it had its foundations on the rock. Everyone who hears Jesus's words and puts them into practice is like the builder who builds on the rock. So this parable presents two ways to do life for our children and us as parents. The first way is to build on the sand. Anything that isn't living to listen and obey Jesus's words is building on the sand. To think education will save our children is building on the sand. For our children to grow up believing a good career will save them is building on the sand. As parents, I think we all have a 10 or 20-year plan. That sounds ridiculous, because as parents, we're not sure we have a plan for this weekend. But all that's to say is, if I asked you now to fast forward to your child age 25, and I ask you to imagine driving up to where they live, in your mind, you could, if you were honest, tell me what sort of home you hope they live in. You could tell me whether you'd hope they were married or not married. You could fast forward another 5 years or so. Do they have children? What job would you like them to have? What jobs would you not like them to have? What would their neighbours be like? Who would the people be like they hang out? What country would they live in? You see, we have these plans secretly. And the shape of these plans represents what we believe the rock is. What do we believe the rock is? Because every parent, practically, almost every parent, wants their children to build their lives on the rock. That is something secure and solid that when uncertainty, instability, illness, brokenness comes, they can stand through it. Because that's broadly the story of parenting. When we leave, will our children still be on the rock? When I drive away from uni, their first home, and I now live 4 hours away, the job of parenting is to be able to drive away saying, they've got this. That is why we change nappies. That is why we pick schools. That is why we decorate bedrooms. That's why we give them pocket money, is equipping them for the day we are not there. So what we believe we're giving them when we are not there is what we believe the rock to be. Jesus says there's only one rock. That's what marks out a Christian parent from a good parent. Do you follow? A good parent means you're equipping your kid to be on a rock. A Christian parent is, I know what the rock is, and there is no other rock. To be a Christian parent is to say, I'm going to do my best each day to show my kids more of the rock that is Jesus' words. And it's a challenge. I want to be clear. So the purpose of this is not to make you feel more inadequate, because most parents feel inadequate, not to make you feel more guilty, because most parents feel a bit guilty, but just simply to say, Jesus Christ is on his throne. You are trusting in him. But perhaps parenting is one of the last aspects to say, you have this and I do not. Because they're our kids. And they matter to us in many ways more than our own lives. So you do get to see through parenting, do we truly believe Jesus Christ's words are the rock? Well done. Now, there is a handout. I don't know if you have it. You might see that I'm working through it bit by bit. I'm getting there. And the summary on that handout, if you have it, is just those 2 points from that passage. We point our children to the rock, which is not us and it's not themselves. Let me tell you a story about Kate. I've known Kate's family for 20 years. They are the sort of family I turn to. She told me the story of when she dropped off her oldest son, Tom, at uni. She dropped off Tom in Liverpool. We live in London. 4-hour journey. Kate is a very godly woman. She says she plastered Tom's desk with post-it notes of the address of his nearest good church. I happened to see Kate the first weekend after she dropped Tom off at Liverpool Uni. She said to me, do you know, Ed, everything in me wants to phone up Tom and say, Tom, go out your front door, turn right. 200 yards, turn left, straight on, 400 yards on the right, walk in that door, it's your local good church. Tom, get yourself there. Kate said to me, Ed, I can't do it. He's an adult. He's 4 hours away. I can't tell him where to go. He's got his post-it note. He's got a phone. He knows where it is. She got it. He's an adult. He's on his own. She got. The days were over of depending on her. In fact, it was more. She got. He had to depend not even on himself. I just want to tell you the happy ending. I saw Tom a couple of months afterwards, half term. He helped me move a table. He's a man of few words. Tom, how's it going at uni? It's good, Ed. Going to church, Tom? Big smile. Yes, Ed, I'm going to church. Final question, Tom. What about your mates? Are they making you do weird stuff? Because there aren't many Christians at uni, are there? You're right, Ed. Very few Christians, but they're really nice. They don't mind me being a Christian, and I even talk to them about it sometimes. I grinned ear to ear. In those moments, I try not to shed a tear because I secretly want to. I've learned that freaks kids out, and teenagers and adults. But I've known Tom since he was 5. That's what I live for, those kind of conversations. I just wanted to show you a couple of graphs. I used to be an engineer, so I still find graphs interesting. I'm sorry if you don't. This won't last long, okay? But I find data interesting because data says the Bible's true. That's the great joy to me, okay? This is UK data, so forgive me. But I think, because the data tells me, I know the data is the same in Australia, and I'm going to make a punt that it's similar in South Africa, okay? The question was asked in 2017 of UK Christians, not just people who say they're a Christian, but the ones who go to churches, open their Bibles, pray and sing. When did you become a Christian? 40% of the UK church say they became a Christian under the age of 5. That is, they don't remember a day when their mum didn't read them a Bible story in bed, when their dad didn't pray them through the hard moments of life. They don't remember a day when there wasn't Colin Buchanan, Awesome Cutlery, or whoever your favorite kids' Christian bunch is, Seeds Music, playing on the CD in the kitchen, in the car. They don't remember a day they didn't thank the Lord each night. Another 16% came to faith under the age of 10. Now, I didn't check this with Murray in advance, but in the UK, we go from primary to secondary age 10. So what this graph says is that by the end of primary school in the UK, more than half of the UK church has said it was done for them. They came to faith. Now, developmentally, that's what we're told from the science, is that by the age of 9, a child's moral framework is built. So by the age of 9, a child has decided, when do I lie? When do I tell the truth? When do I steal? When do I apologize? Who do I trust? Who do I not trust? That's done by 9. By 13, a child's spiritual framework is built. Is there an invisible world that I can't see? Is there a God? Do I like him? Is he good or is he evil? Do I trust him? Do I hate him? Or do I deny he exists? Broadly, young people have decided that by 13. To be a Christian means we believe repentance is possible. In other words, to be a Christian, to become a Christian as an adult is, I'm going to take apart my framework and I'm going to start from the ground up. New birth. There's another way of coming to faith, and this data says it's the main way, the majority way, is you build your framework right the first time. Now, in Southwest London, I've had a lot of South African mates. And I remember one conversation I had with a South African mate. He now lives in Hull. I'm sure that's not how you say it, but it's how I say it. He now lives in Hull. He's an elder of his church. He's a great guy. He said to me, coming to faith, I'd been brought up going to church. It's like all the furniture had been put in the right places. Someone switched on the lights. Now, that isn't a UK experience because the generation now of adults didn't grow up going to church. A whole heap of you in South Africa did. So in South Africa, you have a greater cultural Christianity happening. And I want to say use that because it will slip away unless the Lord hears our prayers. But this graph says those early years are the ones that matter. Finally, 19% by 18. By the time you leave high school, 75% of the UK church had come to faith. There's only a quarter left. If we are not doing the job of parenting, if we're not doing the job of Sunday school, youth group, if we are not doing the job of church properly, we're only going to have a quarter left to play with. And then finally, a bunch of teenagers were asked, what were the key factors in you coming to faith? Christian teenagers, 11s to 18s, why do you think you're a Christian? These are the top 3 answers. I grew up in a Christian home, the Bible, Sunday school, not youth group. So that's just to say, firstly, even when they're slamming the door, even when they're rolling their eyes, even when they're shouting, bad, we are the strictest family in the whole of Cape Town, even when they're saying to mum, I hate being a Christian, they are still watching. They're still listening. Will mum hold the line? Will dad put his foot down over this? Or does this not really matter to him? Our kids draw conclusions from their parents. Our kids learn what their parents prioritize. By the age of 10, our kids absolutely know what dad thinks is most important. Does he shout loudest for the Springboks or when he sings in church? Does he panic most when I won't do more South African ones? But where does he go in times of trouble? The Bible and prayer, or for a beer with his mates? If they're Christian mates, you're allowed that. Okay, we're just going to do some nuts and bolts now before I finish, okay? On the handout, I've put 3 areas of where we might see this practically worked out in parenting, okay? We're on the second side, I think, if you've printed it out like I have. 3 areas are when life is happening, when the Bible is open in the family, and when church is happening, okay? I'm going to just work up from the bottom very quickly because it's the top one that's the hardest, so I want to do that last. The third one, when church is happening, we help them to engage. When church is happening, you're training your child to do church. We stand to sing, we kneel to pray, we listen hard to the preacher, even when his sermon isn't as good as we wish it was. Sorry, Murray, but you're not the Lord. We whisper in their ear, did you hear the big point? We whisper in their ear. Murray's doing an illustration. This is the bit to listen to. We walk out and we say to our kids, what's the big thing you learned? What's the one thing we learned together? And I know they say, I don't know. So as parents, we have to come up with better questions. When church is happening, we help them to engage. When the Bible is open, we connect with their heart instead of their behavior. If we're in the habit of opening the Bible at home, and please, let's have a go. I should just mention 2 books I happen to have written that are available afterwards. Family Bible Times, trying to make them easy, trying to make them about the heart. Our primary concern is not our children's behavior. Because would you know it, when we're out the room, they won't behave like that. We're training our kids for when we're not in the room. So we have to train their heart. How did you feel when that happened? What decision did you make? If you had your time again, what do you think you'd do differently? Why? To do that, we need to find a moment of peace. And then finally, when life is happening, 3 steps. I'm going to show you a video, then I'll be done. So this is saying, life is happening. Sorry, I'll stop sharing. That's annoying. When life is happening. So perhaps as a thought experiment, just think now, one of your children, if I asked you what is their greatest problem, if I asked you what most often moves them to tears, if I asked you what you pray about, okay? So you got one issue for one of your children. So I'm just wondering how we would talk about this if we wanted them to stand on the rock with this issue, okay? On that handout, I've said that there could be. This isn't divine. This is just my idea. Sorry, it's not my idea. I've got it from others who are wiser than me. Firstly, what is causing the problem? Ask them. In a moment of peace, not in the tears, not in the storm. In a moment of peace, do you understand why you feel like this? Now, if they're under 5, it's got to be a lot simpler. What happened? Why? But if they're teenagers, why do you think it's happening? Why do you think you feel like this? Second question, what is it about their heart that causes the problem? If they're under 5, might be lying. What is it that causes them to lie? Are they scared of punishment? Do they just want to be the well-behaved child? They don't want to get into trouble. Is it that they don't know truth matters? Is it they think everyone else is lying? In their heart, and it's different for every child, why are they doing this? If they're 5 to 11, constantly arguing with their sister or their brother, what's in their heart? Are they jealous of their sibling? Do they dislike their sibling? Do they love their sibling less than anyone else they know? Have they forgotten their sibling is human? Is the sibling there as an opportunity for patience and they miss that? I don't have to be patient with my sibling. Or over 11s. An example from my family is the difficulty of friends. The difficulty of friends. Why does it hurt so much? Because you can't make them have friends and they can't make friends like them. But why does it hurt so much? What is it about their need of friendship that makes it feel so desperate? That actually makes making friends even harder. And then the final step, how could standing on the rock help their heart with this problem? What is it about Jesus's words that mean he can help? For lying, what is it about Jesus's words that means he can help? Well, Jesus is the truth. He only ever tells the truth. Our family only ever tell the truth. To tell an under 5, in our family, we only tell the truth because Jesus tells the truth. For 5s to 11s, arguing with your sibling, what is it about Jesus that changes how we treat our sibling? He actually looked after the weakest. He looked after the most fragile. He didn't hang out with the coolest. He didn't hang out with the people just like them. The Lord has given you a sibling who's different to you to train your heart to love what is different. Finding friends. What is it about Jesus, knowing him, that changes our desperation to belong and to fit in? Well, we belong in his family. That's what being saved means. We're never alone anymore. I'm just going to show you a video to finish. This is a video of a mother talking to her daughter. I just want to warn you, they're talking about the grandfather's death. He's just died. This is a real conversation. So it is hard to listen to because the daughter is in tears. I just want you to listen to how this conversation works. These steps. How do you feel? Do you know what the problem is? Do you know why it's a problem? How does knowing Jesus change it? Maybe as you're watching, scribble down a question. Think what you want to talk about after you leave the room. Okay, share screen. One moment. Great. Great. Got it. This is 3 minutes.
Isla, can you tell me any things in life now that are sad and hard? What kind of things make us cry?
Dreams.
Bad dreams?
When you've hurt yourself.
When you've hurt yourself. What else makes us cry?
About Grandpa.
About Grandpa. What is it about Grandpa that makes you cry? You want to see him again. And can you see him again?
He's dead.
Where is he?
He's in heaven.
He is in heaven. So it is really sad that we don't get to see him anymore. But isn't he somewhere amazing? Look, I'm drawing a picture. What's my picture?
Palace.
A palace. And whose palace is it?
Jesus.
And where is Grandpa?
In Jesus.
In Jesus' palace. He is. What do you think he's doing?
Having fun.
He's having loads of fun, isn't he? He is having loads of fun. Look at him. Look, I'm drawing him with a great big smile. Do you think he needs to walk with his walking frame anymore? No. What do you think he might be doing?
Walking.
Walking. Tell me what heaven is like. What do you think it's like? Fun. How is it fun?
You get to play lots of games.
Get to play lots of games. Wow, that sounds amazing. And what do you think's there?
Jesus.
Okay. And what else?
Birds that can sing.
Birds that can sing. Brilliant. What else?
Plants you can smell.
Oh, and what can you feel?
Tickly grass.
You can feel tickling grass. Oh, that's great. And what do you think you'll be able to do?
Play with Grandpa.
Play with who else?
My friends.
Your friends. And who else?
Jesus.
Jesus. Do you think Jesus will come and play? What kind of game do you think we'll be able to play with him?
Twirly birds.
Twirly birds. Oh, I think he'd love playing twirly birds. Wow. And do you think that there'll be any bad dreams in heaven? Absolutely not. There'll be none of those. And we'll be with Jesus all of the time. What about falling over and hurting yourself? We'll be able to stay there all of the time with Jesus. So remembering these things will help us with all of these things, won't they?
Sorry, just to pull those threads together, what I'm arguing for, which I believe the Bible is arguing for, is the difference between Christian parenting and good parenting is we are pointing Jesus to the rock, which is Jesus Christ. He is the solution to their biggest problems, their biggest brokenness. As parents, we find that very difficult. We are well equipped at helping our kids with algebra. We're well equipped at helping our kids choose their first car and learn to drive. We're well equipped with changing nappies. We find it hard to know how to bring Jesus Christ to bear into the everyday mess of life with those conversations that might only happen once a week. but we are looking for them more often than that. But to be a member of a good church like yours is to make these the conversations we have with others, to try and get their wisdom, knowing that Jesus Christ is for you as parents. I'm done. Murray, what can we do next?
Ed, thank you so much. I've got a couple of questions for you. And I'll take questions from the floor in a moment. I've had a few scrolled down and handed to me. So first off, Ed, it's actually been a theme through this whole weekend. You've referred quite a bit to doing this together in a church. Obviously, as parents, you take a lead, but there are ways that we can help each other. A few practical ideas there. How can we, going forward, how can we actually help each other as parents?
Great. Brilliant. The first thing is, Murray, is we all find it easier to talk about our 9-to-5 job, the car we plan to buy, our golf stroke. So church needs to be a place where the bravest and most godly amongst us are in the habit of talking about parenting and what's going wrong. So I think as a church, you just want to ask yourself, if someone came in here and parenting for them was in a crisis, would they find people without even asking who are saying, can I tell you what I'm finding hard at the moment? So that others go, I honestly believed you had everything sorted. I think parenting is one of those areas where the church believes, people believe that our church leaders have parenting sorted. Maybe that's not the case at St. Peter's, but as a church, be in the habit of starting these conversations about what is difficult, what is hard, and how you're trying to work it through. From a Christian point of view, not a worldly point of view. Talk more about Christ and less about which high school your kids are going to go to.
Yeah, that's helpful. That's helpful. Another question, Ed, for any words of advice for those who are perhaps married to someone who's not a Christian?
Yeah.
Or any kind of top tips or?
Yeah, I think the Bible model is that our marriage is to be prized above all else. So I do know I've had conversations with mothers in tears who say my husband won't allow me to bring a Bible into the house. That probably sounds fairly extreme to you. And the advice there must be, I don't believe as a mother you should be sort of going against your husband's desire, will. So I think the first thing is we tread carefully. I think we tried to approach parenting like the rest of our Christian life, which is we prize it, we value it, but our marriage really matters. I think this is somewhere where the church really can play a huge part. So that the picture of church is big brothers, big sisters, big uncles, big aunts, grandparents, that we are a family. So if you like, if a single parent was to come to your church, would they find a bunch of uncles and aunts? If there was to be a mum in your church whose husband wasn't a Christian, would they find a bunch of others, not to replace the father, the mother, but to just be another voice, not contradicting, just to be that voice of love and care, which I think every parent, whether they're Christians or not, wants. We want role models in our kids' lives who we trust, who we rely on. And I think as kids get older in the teenage years, parents of teenagers want other voices because it's just hard work going at it all the time. So that would be my answer, is lean into church, and church lean into families. Don't overstep the mark, but look for opportunities to love. Look for opportunities to be a voice. Open the Bible with our teenagers. Get in the habit that our teenagers particularly are opening the Bible with a whole heap of people, okay? Don't just look after your own kids.
That's great, Ed. Thank you. Another question for me. I'm sure you've never been asked this one. What do I do when my child doesn't want to come to church?
Okay. I think the first thing is to understand is when your child is having this conversation, the child has been thinking it for about 4 years before this conversation. So I think that's in the UK, there's been a big thing in lockdown, is parents thought their teenagers were basically on board with church. When you put church online, their teenagers want nothing to do with it. Why? Because when they were going to church, they were sitting next to their mates. They didn't think that much of Jesus. They might not even have known that. But they did know they were loved by the youth worker, by a bunch of mates. Now when you take the mates away, what's church got? So all I would just firstly say is that conversation is not the crisis. It feels big, but let's start the conversation way earlier. So before the conversation, we're asking questions like, how do you find church? What's difficult? What do we thank God for about church? Why do we go? Why does our church go? Why do we think it matters? Do you think it matters? Do you think you're a Christian? Do you know what it is to be a Christian? Not all in one conversation. When the conversation happens, I don't want to go to church anymore. First of all, isn't it great they're telling you honestly? Any crisis is an opportunity for Christ to speak. Just let's be clear on that. This is one of those storms we read about in that parable. Stand on the rock, ask great questions. Okay? Thanks for telling me. What is it about church you don't like? What is it about Jesus you don't like? What is it about your youth group? What is it about me? What is it about the way we've done Jesus at home? Have a conversation. Don't do it all in one go. Keep the conversation happening. Keep talking, not to irritate them. And at some point, I suspect there's going to be a day you say you don't have to come to church. I leave it to you to work out when that is. Make it quite late.
Yeah, that's really helpful. And it's actually come through so much in the session is that sort of getting to that level of honesty is a real win. And I think it's a warning for us here, as Ed has alluded to in South Africa, because we are not so post-Christian, we will very easily kind of live comfortably in this place where we just, we keep the veneer looking good, but we're not having those honest conversations about, yes, but what do you really think about Jesus? I don't want to hog the questions. Any questions from the floor? Tell me, and then I'll ask Ed, and he'll hear the question. Any questions, thing you wanted to get advice from Ed on, or things you wanted him to probe in a bit more detail? Tam, yeah. Okay, question, maybe especially with young kids, but I guess kids of any age, when it comes to Bible time, and specifically the prayer time with Bible time, and the kids are just not engaging with prayer, any advice as to kind of where they draw the line? What battles do you fight there?
Yes. I'm just going to share one picture. This is the picture I think I share more than any other. Hang on, let's just get that up. This was a photo taken by my wife from our family Bible time. Okay, so she wanted to take this photo because I was writing books of family Bible times, and this is what ours looked like. This is normal. So in other words, 2 of the 3 children are hanging over the arm, wishing they weren't there. 1 looks engaged, and that's because he's the youngest, and my arm can clamp him in place, so he has no choice. Okay, so the point of showing you that photo is just to say, are children not knowing or not being interested in reading the Bible? Are children not being able to pray? Are children not getting the right answers? This is just life. They're learning. We're teaching them. What a blessing that we're the ones to teach them. So on the particular question of prayer, children have to learn, like they'd learn anything. You know, like when you put them on a stage, they don't want to talk. To talk to the living God is harder for some kids than others. And all kids have to learn. He's listening. So I'd say at the very earliest days, we give them the prayer. Why don't you say, "Dear Father, thank you for," and then the one idea we've just thought about in the kids' Bible. Just repeat it after me. "Dear Father, thank you for," with the expectation they will. I think as a parent, you've got that leverage. We do this. Ready? Listen. "Dear Father, thank you for," whatever it is. Next step after that is, Can you tell me the one thing we've heard about in this story? Yes, they tell you. You're going to say, dear Father, thank you for that thing. Ready? Off you go. Next step, and so on. So all I mean is, first of all, there is no family where this is going really well. So first of all, don't be thrown by, it really shouldn't be like this. Yeah, it should. It's family. Second step, how do I walk my child through the steps of this, which is basically the question for every problem in life. How do I ask good questions? How do I get them doing it? How do I get them to learn how to do it for themselves? Keep doing it. Keep doing it. You're doing great. Your family is nowhere near as bad as you think it is.
Thanks, Ed. We're about to, yes, Kieran, another question.
What would be the one thing, looking back at all your years of parenting, that you wish you had done from the beginning?
What would be the one thing, if you look back over all your years of parenting so far, what would be the one thing that you wish you had done from the beginning?
Wow. I think my honest answer is I wished I'd prayed for them more. I think the sort of get my kid standing on the rock kicks in when you realize they're not, when you realize it's harder than you realize too. I think for a lot of years first, I thought I was doing it. So that moment of, Lord, I have no answers. The problem my child is facing is bigger than me, and I cannot fix it. I think generally that happens about the age of 10 to 13. You discover you cannot parent every problem. I realize, basically, parenting belonged to me, not the Lord, for the first 10 years. I was going to parent my kids through problems. I wish from the very beginning I'd been told, you don't stand a chance. You don't in life, you don't in parenting, lean on the Lord.
Ed, thank you. I'm getting signals from the back that we're about to lose power again. It has been so helpful to hear from you. It has been a reminder to me again that we've got to make this trip happen. So when the borders are open, when you can fly again, we will pray to God that we will get you out here. It's been so helpful. Thank you so much.
In real life,
Evening everyone, we just need to get everything ready and set up, courtesy of ESCOM, so if you can just wait for just a couple of minutes until we get everything set, and then we're going to go. So keep on chatting, say hello to everybody next to you, we'll be starting soon.